guys. We've got a kelp crab with no claws.
Friend crab.
A friend crab.
A friend crab. We'll go find some that are a little less misfortunate. And we got an awesome low tide here. We're out at the Fox Island Bridge in Fox Island, Washington, and I'm here with Auden and Connor, and we're just poking along, seeing what cool, amazing creatures we can find. If you want to post in the comments where you're watching from, we'd love to know that information. It is super hard for me, though, to walk and talk and read comments all at the same time. So apologies if I don't get to your questions right away. It's just the most perfect day right now. Not too cold. A little bit overcast. Apologies for any glare. Not too much wind. That's pretty great. So the tide is still going out for another few minutes. It's a negative 2 foot tide today. So that's 2 vertical feet below the average of all the low tides. And that exposes a portion of the beach that's normally undercover. So you can kind of look up and see just how far up the water goes, all the way up to kind of the top of those rocks. You can see the line of barnacles on the bridge here. And during low tide is my favorite time to come to the beach because you get to see cool, amazing animals like these leather sea stars. This beach has so many leather stars. These are all juveniles. They get about maybe a foot and a half across at their maximum size. And this one is regrowing a limb. So down here by my pinky is a limb that has been damaged, and that arm will regrow. It's already started to regrow. You can see that little kind of nub in there. The mouth is in the center, and then there have these 5 arms filled with tube feet. The tube feet are like little macaroni noodles. That's how they move around. They use seawater as their blood, and they let that in through this madreporate on their back. So every sea star has one. They're usually located just slightly off center on the top side, but there are a few like the sand star that keep them along the sides of their gills. And here we're to the point where we've got a lot of different red algae, and you can see the shine of that iridescent kelp, the iridescent algae. It is one of my most favorites. I say that about all the seaweeds though. Auden, here's where you want to take your underwater footage. We've got all the different kelps here. This is where all kinds of little fishies will be. So this is acid kelp here. It is comes in 2 forms. It has this bladed form and this hairy form. It's kind of a filamentous, really fine bladed. There's Turkish towel here. There's iridescent kelp.
I got so excited I thought I found a sand dollar.
Oh, not a sand dollar. Little bit of sea glass. There's red spaghetti algae here.
Oh, is this a moon snail making an egg?
It is a moon snail making eggs. So fantastic find. You mission accomplished. You found it.
Oh, that's sweet.
Didn't have to go too far.
Okay, step 2 was picking them up. But.
Yeah, so this moon snail is actually just about finished because we can see the end of this section kind of tapers off, and it's about the same amount as kind of going fully around their body. So here's one I can show you. That probably, oh yeah, it's not. This one was made a little while ago. So this is the egg collar of the snail.
Are those little baby snails? Or
These are, but not moon snails. These are called dove snails.
Yeah.
There are a little scavenger snail.
And munching on it?
Probably, or more just using it for cover.
Okay.
Because, you know, it's good substrate. Oh, I see a cool decorator crab. Hold on, I gotta talk about it before I lose it. Because they're so good at blending in.
Oh!
So this is a sharp-nosed decorator crab. One of my most favorite species to find. And everything growing on its carapace, it was placed there by this crab. So they kind of have this little ghillie suit on to blend in with everything around them. And they really blend in quite well. So yeah, really great camouflage. So it pays to go slow and not just go trouncing around in this habitat because there's so much life here. But here's back to our moon snail. So this one is just finishing up the end of this. You can see this kind of tapered end. That is the completed snail egg casing. And it's made of sand and mucus. And in the center, sort of between the outside section and the inside section, between my fingers here, is a layer of eggs. And it's like a thin, gelatinous layer. And so moon snails, you can touch them. They are not harmful. They're not poisonous. They can't hurt you. And this one, being right on the surface and under the water, is a great candidate for lifting up. What you want to do is go beneath them and just lift, and make sure that you support the foot of the snail. You don't want to lift them up by their shell. But yeah, go ahead and feel it. They feel like a raw chicken breast if it could move.
Oh, beautiful, beautiful snail. Do they have like pretty visible eyes or anything?
They
like
have
that?
2 antennae that'll come up at the front, so they'll be right kind of, let's see, if we can get it to lay flat, it will come out and you'll see 2 black antennae on that top side. The whorl on the side, people call it the eye, and moon snails are related to other snails called shark eyes on the East Coast. But this is Lewis's moon snail, one of the largest predatory snails, and they are, oh, there goes our little crabby clump walking by. So yeah, if you ever want to encounter a moon snail, just make sure you do so with your hands wet and moist, because they are a mollusk and they have quite sensitive body chemistry. They can smell with their foot, so you want to kind of make sure it's nice and wet. But yeah, so in the spring they come a little bit more shallow intertidally to leave these egg collars behind. One estimate said that there's about 500,000 eggs in each collar. And of course, most of them will not survive. There's a little bit of irony there in that most of the snails' eggs, when they hatch, become planktonic and are consumed by clams. And then any that make it to become a snail are then going to eat clams exclusively. So very circle of life kind of thing. Oh, here's another little something here. Got a tiny chitin. So this is a woody chitin, and I noticed it because the foot is bright orange. You can see they have a little radula up at the top, kind of on this side, which is how they eat. That's also how moon snails eat. They scrape a hole through the clam's shell. So when you find clams that have a perfectly round little broken section near the hinge, that's the moon snail murder mark.
Moon snail murder.
Yeah.
Oh, there's a little duckling crab.
Oh yeah, just scooching along.
Hanging out with us. It's very cute.
So cool.
So it depends on what you would. Oh, here's another decorator. This is a different species than that first species. The first one we saw was a sharp-nosed decorator. This is a graceful decorator. And this is the species I have in my tanks.
I love how pointy.
They are so pointy, and the first thing that they decorate is their rostrum right up that top, that little section of their nose that sticks out to try to disguise themselves. And they decorate within about 10 minutes of molting. I discovered, because one molted in my tank, and I saw it. It was completely naked, and I went and was doing some tank maintenance and things like that, and came back about 10 minutes later, and it had decorated itself again, which is fantastic. Somebody was asking about the red spaghetti algae. That's this stuff here, succulent seaweed. It's really kind of juicy. This one has spore-bearing sections, so it's in reproduction mode, as are most things down here at the intertidal zone. Look at this iridescent kelp, though. This seaweed, Masiella splendens, it's called, and in the sunlight, it is just so beautiful. So red algae thrive at a deeper level than the green algae. So high up on the beach, you're going to see the green of the ulva, and then we get into the red algae, and then the deepest are going to be the brown algae typically. Oh, here's one of my most favorites. This is red eyelet silk, and I love it because it has holes. gorgeous. And here I am. Any bets on if I'm going to flood my boots? Because I'm kind of famous for it. Start walking along and you're not paying attention, and all of a sudden your toes are wet. And so right here, this section is a little bit higher, and this is all shell debris. This is all broken, typically barnacles, but probably some clam shells in here as well. But barnacles that live on like the big rocks, and then they get broken down. There are some moon glow anemones. I wish I could show you those, but they're really good at camouflaging. I can kind of see one. Like that little circle right at the tip of my finger is a moon glow anemone. All right, and I think I'm gonna chance it. I think I can make it across this little section. Oh nope, I chanced it and I got wet. Should have stayed on my tippy toes. I don't know. Hold on. It's too glary. I can't see anything. I gotta dump out my boot. All right, what is this? They say. Yeah, that's acid kelp. So there's two forms. This is the thick-bladed acid kelp. And then there's the hairy stuff. That's also acid kelp. Desmarestia is the species, is the genus. They're not the same species. So Desmarestia viridis and something else. Something to do with the flatness of the blades. It'll come to me. But they are fantastic because they have sulfuric acid, and when they're stressed they release it. So either stress from like an animal nibbling on it, or stress from low tide. So we will probably start to see some of it self-destructing, and it bleaches. So here it is out of the water. It's just beautiful. I love it. I have to be careful collecting it for my tanks because if you hold it in your hands, it releases sulfuric acid and it stings like vinegar. Oh, look at how much plankton there is here, so you can see.
There's like these little green cute things. I love them.
Yeah, they're kind of more like round and green. They're ostracods. Oh, there goes a red rock crab. Yeah, we are at Fox Island, right at the bridge here. It's one of my most favorite spots because of all this algae that's here. It kind of shelters a ton of different animals. There's really high biodiversity here. It's one of my most favorite spots. Here's a ochre, or not an ochre. This is a mottled sea star, Evasterius trochellii. And now the tide is low enough that we're gonna start to see some stressed out animals. So they're all adapted to this, but it doesn't mean that they don't freak out a little bit during low tide. So we do our best to minimize our impact on these animals by, going really slowly, treading carefully, not pulling things off the rock, touching with wet fingers when we can. We've got some orange sea cucumbers here. So Fox Island is right near Gig Harbor. Gig Harbor is connected to Tacoma. If you've heard of the Tacoma Narrows Bridge or Galloping Gertie, the bridge that fell down in 1940, that's where we are. We're about an hour south of Seattle, and it's beautiful. Adam's going back to go grab their stuff. Let's see. I got to do a little scamper maneuver. This is where it's really hard to walk and talk and read all at the same time, because I am very carefully climbing over these barnacle encrusted rocks. Barnacles are one of the toughest creatures around, and at this location we have these tiny acorn barnacles, so you can see them. There's also baby barnacles, so you can see just how tiny they start out. But there's also giant barnacles. So over on the pilings there are the world's largest barnacles. Oh, here's a cool find. This is a leafy hornmouth snail. And yep, okay, I was gonna say, and if we look closely, we'll probably see their eggs. So down in here, these are leafy hornmouth snail eggs. They get called sea oats, and they're here together. We got a bit of a snorgy going on. Oh, and speaking of, okay, here's another mollusk group. I got barnacle eating nudibranchs and their eggs. The weather today, it's about 55 degrees Fahrenheit, about the same temperature as the water almost. Water's a little cooler than that, I guess. The sun is breaking through. It's not windy. The water clarity is incredible right now. So this is just ideal conditions for doing live. Yeah, this is my happy place. I would not want to be doing anything other than this right now. This is incredible. And we've got a series of low tides coming up this week. So today, tomorrow, Monday, Tuesday. By Wednesday, they kind of start being not quite as low. Let's see if I can get this where we can see some of the creatures living in the kelp here. We've got beautiful kelp crab. Auden, what's your TikTok handle? Fishy Daddy. All right, so you need to go follow Fishy Daddy. This is Auden over here. They're from Oregon and have a lot of really similar content to ours, but in a slightly different environment. Auden also does some really cool things with preserving fish and bugs and things like that. So lots of oddities and other curiosities. I mean, you should definitely go follow them. Ooh, from Italy. I would love to go tide pooling in Italy. Oh, we've got the crows joining us down here now. When it's low tide, the animals all come down to feed and take advantage of what is normally covered up by water. So where I'm standing here, we're at a -2 foot tide right now, and it's going to go up to maybe a positive 12 or so. So a pretty decent tidal swing, and all of this vertical height here on the pilings will be covered up. So you can always tell where the highest tidal line is by where the barnacles are. They come in as plankton and they stick to the only thing, like the first thing that they run into. And so you can always kind of look up the rocks and see where the barnacles stop, and that's where the tide reaches. And if they happen to settle on like a really high tide, they won't survive, obviously. So sometimes we see dead barnacles a little bit higher up in the tidal heights. But look at the incredible diversity of this habitat. There is so much going on here. So many living things. And it starts with the algae. And we've got kind of two different kinds. We have the macroalgae, the big stuff that you can see, the kelps and seaweeds. And then we have the microscopic algae, which is what all of these little bugs and things, all the little zoomies that you see in the water, are feasting on phytoplankton. And it's little single cellular algae that drifts around. And all of that forms the base of the food web here in the Salish Sea. The Puget Sound is its other name. So you might, if you're not familiar with Salish Sea, it's a rather new term, adopted officially in 2009. To talk about this as an ecosystem. So we have the Puget Sound, the Straits of Juan de Fuca, and kind of the Georgia Basin up in Vancouver, in Canada, British Columbia, I mean. Oh, here's a moonglow anemone. Okay, so I was wishing I could talk about those earlier, and they're beautiful. So barnacles are plankton eaters. So they are stretching their feet, which is how they eat, into the water to capture the different food items available. There's so many of these creatures here, and so many of them are plankton eaters. We've got the tentacles of the orange sea cucumbers. They're out, they're consuming plankton. There are anemones here. These are moonglow anemones down here at the bottom. Then there's some larger anemones kind of tucked in and up and around here. And those are also filter feeders. These giant barnacles, sometimes they will oblige and show us their feet. They are alive and moving. And so right here, they can see too. They have eyes. But sometimes even at low tide, they will kick their feet out into the water or into the air, and then we can see them kind of eating. There's a ton of kelp crabs here, and they're all concentrated at the bottom of these pilings because of gravity. They just kind of get pushed down lower and lower as the tide goes out. And as the tide comes back in, they'll all climb back up and kind of take their various spots. So you can tell the difference between males. This is a really large male here. The males have much bigger pinchers. Sorry, I'm getting water dripping from these barnacles and mussels here, dripping onto my phone, so apologies if it's going in and out of focus. So here's a female, and you can see the abdominal flap is really, really big. It kind of bulges outward. She's, I'm willing to bet, filled with eggs right now, or gravid, we would say. And sure enough, you can see right in between, just below her mouth, you can see those little red dots. Those are eggs. And notice how small her pinchers are compared to the males, which are like all elbows. Oh, here's a fantastic find. Check out this. There is a little teeny tiny sea star here.
Wow.
Isn't it wild? There's so much stuff here.
Did you see that there's a starfish and a crab inside of this barnacle?
I love it. So it's probably a pygmy rock crab if it's not a spider crab or not a kelp crab, because they love to live in dead barnacle shells. So when the barnacles die, so this is a living barnacle. You can see the kind of trapdoor. Here's one that's actually moving. But when they die, they leave behind kind of their volcano-shaped shells. Here's an empty one right here. And that is a great spot for things like grunt sculpin or pygmy rock crabs. Oh, see, there's one. You can probably not tell that I'm zoomed in on a pygmy rock crab inside there because they kind of fill up the whole of the barnacle. Yeah, back to kelp crabs. They're pretty territorial. They get called spider crabs because of their very long limbs and small several discs. Oh, the barnacles are making sounds up here. It's a little unnerving. They're just moving. They kind of crackle, snap, crackle, and pop a bit. So there's the feeding tentacles, the feet of the barnacle. Scoop outward into the water to capture plankton. And that's how all barnacles eat. It's just really visible on these giant barnacles. All right, so here is one evidence of an animal that's not a filter feeder. We can see the scrape marks of some kind of mollusk. So my guess would be a chitin or a snail, something that's scraping things off of the rock and kind of leaving that little zigzaggy pattern behind. So there's a couple different sea star species here. This is a mottled sea star. There are a number of them. You can kind of see them tucked in along the barnacles. There's also ochre stars here, big purple ones. Let's see if I can get over to this side. So many kelp crabs, look at them all. Just piled on top of one another. Got lots of anemones here. This is your moment to look away if you have trypophobia, because I'm going to show you the aggregating anemones. And this sometimes triggers people. These are predators, but when you touch them, they're alive, they move. They have beautiful tentacles that they stick out when they're underwater, and they have kind of pink tips to them. They're really quite beautiful. Let's see, what else is around here? Lots of leather stars, some various snails. There's probably likely some nudibranchs, some interesting creatures hiding underneath these rocks, but I need 2 hands to investigate those. There's so much stuff. Isn't this just like concentrated intertidal?
Yeah, like all these little crabs right here are just like stacked.
Stacked. Yeah, so they normally spread out along the whole of the pilings. So when the tide comes back in, they'll move back up.
So cool.
But yeah, look how crabby they are. Got some crab disagreements here. So one of the questions we always get asked is like, what's dangerous here? And really, short of like physically injuring yourself on like rocks or barnacles, there's nothing venomous or dangerous. This oyster shell is probably one of the worst things, simply because it has these really fluted edges that are razor sharp. But there's nothing really like dangerous. Like there's hardly any venomous animals here. Even our jellyfish are not particularly stingy, and it's because of the productivity of these waters. They don't have to paralyze and kill the chance fish that comes along. They can exist by eating tons and tons and tons and tons of plankton without too much effort, and so they don't really need to evolve those really intense defense tactics. Oh, so here's some acid kelp that's bleached. So this is in self-destruct kind of mode because it got hung up here and probably started to dry out yesterday. When it's stressed out, it releases sulfuric acid, which is kind of metal if you ask me. Yeah, here's some more large barnacles. These are little baby giant barnacles, I would say. They'll get much bigger than that, about softball sized. We've got keyhole limpets here. I love them because they have faces. You can see their two little antennae and then their kind of radula coming down the center. Got lots of chitons. This is a really ancient form of snail. They have 8 plates along their back. Oh, here's an ochre star, little purple tucked up in there. Got some nudibranch eggs from barnacle eating nudies. Not surprising because there's tons of barnacles here to eat. That they would then lay eggs here. It's where I try not to fall, especially not while I'm filming. So tons and tons of seaweed, all of it providing hiding places and food. There's so much plankton in the water. Can you guys see those little zoomies? Those are all different types of crustaceans. Some of them are on their way to becoming something larger, so they could be like crab larvae that hasn't quite matured into their final crab form, or they could be type of plankton that stays plankton their whole lives. Like this is as big as they're gonna get. Here's more of those aggregating anemones here. So many cool things. Oh, there's another leafy hornmouth snail. I can show you what's really cool about this snail is they are pryers. So they are carnivores, and they use this little tooth here on their shell in order to pry open other shelled animals and eat them. They have this trap door at the back. This is called the operculum, and it grows to fit as the snail grows. Oh, he's got a little hitchhiky bug hanging out in there. There's not too many scallops here. They're not really an intertidal species. They like to be more submerged for most of their lives. But yeah, here's the leafy hornmouth snail. Just a really cool, very distinctive shell shape. And we only really find these in very rocky areas. They like places with lots of rocks. That's a species that wouldn't, say, thrive in like a sandy area.
Inside out.
Oh yeah, they just fall backwards. Woe is me. Poor things.
No.
I know. Look at that.
Wow, that's really...
Oh, that's a huge claw.
Oh, that is a huge claw.
Awesome.
That's about as big as they get. All right, what's the coolest thing so far you've seen?
Probably the bubble snails, because I've never seen those in person before.
Oh yeah, they're pretty neat.
I
I love them.
Yes, but I've never seen like this high concentration of leather stars. Just echinoderms in general, I think in one spot.
Oh yeah.
Oh, the sleeping covers and stuff too. This is so cool. Goodness.
Yeah, it's a great, like I just want to go snorkel like right out there, like 20 feet deeper.
Yes.
And see even more. Oh, here's another mottled star. Little baby. Little redhead version. My personal favorites.
Are these trains or what?
They're leafy hornmouths.
Hornmouths. Leafy hornmouths.
Leafy
yes.
hornmouths.
Okay.
There's some laying eggs over there. So you can see their little egg clusters, which is kind of neat. Sea oats.
So the eggs that you're showing us that were like the bubble little snail eggs?
Yeah.
Like those yellow ones. What are like the little sausage ones anchored to the snail?
They are another bubble snail.
Okay.
So there's two. There's like the spotted algaletid and the other one that I never remember. And the ones we saw, I think, are the bigger ones that are laying the white ones anchored. And then the other ones are smaller. And they're more common on sandier beaches. My favorite spot to find them is Penrose Point State Park. And they're just, the whole beach turns yellow with their eggs. There's so many.
This is like, I always forget, like, honestly, Oregon just, the beaches are a little bit less, like, productive than here in California. I always forget, and then I either go to California or here, and I'm like, oh my god.
Oh, yeah.
There's so many things.
Here's something you might have overlooked. It's a colony of tube worms. And they grow together, and they have like little black feeding tentacles.
What species do you guys have for hermit crabs here?
So we have Bering and granular and black-eyed. Let me know if you find a black-eyed. I'm on the hunt for another one of those guys. Oh yeah, that looks like a Bering. It depends on if the tentacles are orange. I believe it's a Bering hermit. If the tentacles, the antenna. I can get my terminology right.
Tentacles. Let's see what comes out. I haven't seen any like larger fish yet.
No, and a lot of the large fish just move out. They chase the tide out. Oh, you are different. You
so
are
pretty.
so pretty. What is the name of you? I know it's Pagris.
Hello, little scorpion. Do you think he's gonna let me pet him?
Yeah. Little sculpin. There's so many. There's a couple of them down in there. Oh, hi. Just tucked in. Hey guys. Here comes our hermit crab friend. He's like, excuse me, I would like to not be flipped over.
I love it when they let you boop them and they're wild fish. I'm like, oh
Right?
gosh, let me boop you.
No, I'm always like, okay, you can come home with me. You clearly want to live the aquarium life.
Yes, you'd be great being amphibit.
Yeah. Okay, so Autumn, what's your favorite fish? That's a loaded question, I realize.
I think they laugh at this, of course. They're my favorite.
Oh, here's I think a fuzzy sculpin. Oh, there, just kidding. He went. I have a fish. I think my favorite non-local fish would be a spotted handfish.
Oh, those are so cool.
Injured, unfortunately, so I don't have high hopes that I will see them in the wild, but maybe. Oh, you're so cute.
Do you know what species that is?
I'm gonna guess ochre because the bandedness of it. That could be mottled too. It's either mottled or ochre.
It's very velcro-y.
There's so many kelp crabs down in here.
Yeah, I've never seen this large of a kelp crab before.
Yeah.
And this many in one
Like
spot.
monstrous. And so when we do low tide programs out here at night in the winter, there are so many. It is creepy. Like it feels like an army of them just marching towards you, and they crawl all over your feet. And I brought Geo Rutherford out here, Geodosaurus. She came and did a night beach walk with us. And we're standing. Oh, there goes another sea star. Somebody went clunk. Some water.
I'm so glad she made it out here. Did she get to go to the Bainbridge Island Art Museum?
Yeah, so that's why she was here. And then she has family that she was staying with. She goes, I have a couple extra days. Can we get together? And I was like, absolutely. So we did some low tide stuff, and it was kind of crazy because she came out with her aunt and uncle, and they had like a little dog with them. And I was like, maybe pick up the little dog because like these crabs are gonna take it out. There were so many.
Is this a granular?
Yeah, that's either granular or Bering. Yeah, you've got orange. It's orange tentacles. So cute. And I always like to burp them when I put them back.
Perfect, so they don't float.
Yeah, so they don't float, because that's got to be hard to deal with. I mean, they do it themselves. I've seen them like turn themselves over and let out a gas bubble. But it feels like I could help you with that. Lots of sea stars.
These like
tucked up under.
The burrowing anemones, are those just burrowing?
They're moon glows. They're really beautiful under UV light.
Oh, that is so cool.
Like blue and greenish. There's another chitin. Lots and lots of chitins. Oh, so here's the leafy hornmouths with their eggs. So you can see the snails, and then their eggs are these little capsules down in here. We got a snorge going on. And then there's a bunch of barnacle-eating nudies and their eggs too.
Do you see many other species of nudies here? Mostly the barnacle.
We get opalescents a lot. I also see sea lemons and leopard dorids. But yeah, mostly barnacle. Like, if I want to guarantee a nudie, I can find you a barnacle-eating nudie. At least this time of year. Towards like June, July, August, they kind of go deeper. Look at the size of these kelp crabs in here. So many. I never have, but somebody told me I needed to like lick it. And I was like, no, I do not think the slug consents to that. I'm not licking it. Ooh, okay, so now here's my question. Is this something dead or something spawning? Because it could be either. It's the right time of year. I see some sort of whiteness in the water.
Do you get hoodeds here?
Yeah, we do. Not so much intertidally though, more docks. And they smell fantastic. A hooded nudibranch, the Malaby leonida smells like artificial watermelon bubble gum. Oh, look at the color of that.
Like smell it and like interact with them. The more it's like sandal.
Yeah.
Wait, is it Malaby?
Yeah, Malaby.
I got pine sol. I got the like.
Oh, interesting.
Yeah, dishwashing.
Look at the plankton in the water. It's just so productive here. There is so much life, so much diversity. Okay, so here we have the acid kelp starting to bleach. So it self-destructs a little bit when it's stressed out, either by low tide or by predation. Lots of different red algae here, red spaghetti, Turkish towel. This is where I wish I could just put my phone in the water and still be able to show you cool things, because who wouldn't want to just swim around in this? Take a look at all the cool creatures. So here's our moon snail. It's out with its foot all exposed, crawling along. So this is a female moon snail, and I know because it was laying this sand collar when we started our live broadcast. So moon snails are carnivorous. They eat clams by drilling a hole through their radula, or with their radula rather, through the hinge end of the shell, which damages the muscle that holds the clam shell closed, and then the moon snail can eat it. It takes several days for that process to happen. And if you've ever wondered what it was like to touch a moon snail, it feels like touching raw chicken. If that raw chicken could move and secrete mucus. I'm just loving all this kelp. If I had to choose between the animals and the seaweed, I think I would choose seaweed, friends. I just love it so much. And there's such high diversity here because of the current. So the tidal exchange here is pretty strong. Our tide is, I can't tell if it's still going out or if that's just the breeze blowing on it. But very soon, oh my gosh, there's duckling or goslings. We got some Canada geese and their babies over here. Oh my goodness, they're so cute. Little fluffies. Lots of leather stars here. Oh, we even got one missing a limb here. So 5 is the typical number, but if they damage it, they will regrow it. This one probably is just beginning the regrowth process. And these are juveniles. They'll get about a foot and a half across.
The best way to split up what fish you like is just like by type, like.
I like ugly, no swim bladder fish.
Yeah, me too. I like long nose swim bladder.
Oh yeah, see, you like the gunnels and coxcombs and stuff like that. I like the short, fat ones. It is really hard to pick a favorite. I'm gonna go grab my bucket over here. Oh, that's a good question. I haven't really thought about freshwater fish too much. Okay, this is where the tide was when it got here today. I set this at the edge at about 11:30. This is where low tide was. And I'm collecting a bit of algae for our animals in our tanks. They get regular live foods, so I will also collect some plankton for them today. We do have a scientific collection permit, so I'm legally out here collecting a few things. Mostly just seaweeds. I gotta refresh my exhibit here. I just love seeing these sea stars hanging out in their environment just on this gorgeous spring day. Again, if you're just joining us and you want to post in the comments where you're watching from, we love to have that information. This is Fox Island, Washington, and this gorgeous body of water is the Salish Sea or Puget Sound. Good spot to just sit and wait and watch for some fish to swim by. Oh, or decorator crabs.
Sweet snails digging again.
Oh yeah, it's going down. Nice. Probably heard me talking about it. So this is a decorator crab. This is a sharp-nosed decorator, and they're able to decorate by snipping with their pinchers any items from their habitat that are suitable. So usually algae, or this one's covered in a lot of filamentous or diatom layer. And then their carapace has these little, almost like Velcro hooks, and they just sort of stick stuff to them. Oh, this one's crawling right over a clam siphon. If he moves off again. Oh, yeah, clam kind of closed up a little bit. A lot of life here, even below the surface. You can see just how well this animal camouflaged. Yeah, thanks to everybody who's liking and sharing and commenting. That all helps us. We are a nonprofit, and we rely on grants and donations and even TikTok funds. So we appreciate all of the ways that you support us through our social media. I would encourage you to follow us on our other social media channels too. We're on YouTube and Facebook and Instagram, and it's at Harbor Wild Watch on all of those. Oh, here's this. I was watching this decorator crab here, and there is a bubble snail crawling along over here. So much to see. Yeah, Harbor Wild Watch is a nonprofit group. We were founded in 2004 by a local resident who was trying to refinish her deck. And the deck extended out over the bay, and she wanted something like ecologically friendly in order to not harm the wildlife there. And every place she went to try to find something like non-toxic to refinish her deck with, they all said, well, it'll just wash away. It's like, don't worry about it, it'll just wash away. And she realized that the people of this community didn't really understand the natural resource that they had here. And so she thought, well, we could educate people about what's here, and hopefully then they will be inspired to take care of it. And so Harbor Wild Watch was born. The very first year we did 2 touch tank programs with 250 people. And our last normal year before pandemic, we did close to 600 programs and reached 35,000 people. So we've grown quite a bit since those early days. What you got? Ooh, yeah. Oh, I hope your footage is turning out on that. That's
I'm getting the rain.
Yeah. the right focus.
Let's see.
Yeah, it's a hard one to capture. So yeah, see if you can scoop it up. So this is a ctenophore. It's not a jellyfish, although it behaves very much like one. It's this little clear ball right in Autumn's fingertips.
There's like a whole bunch of little clear things in the water.
There are tons. Yep.
Oh my god.
So the kind of brownish ones, the ones that like leave a shadow, are most likely diatoms.
Oh, they're huge.
Yeah, they're pretty big, especially now that we get like lots of summer. So a lot of those are like chain diatoms and things.
That's awesome.
And then all the other zoomy creatures in here are feasting on those planktonic things. And then you have larger jellies and ctenophores that are eating those things. And this is the season where a lot of these animals are broadcasting their spawn. So they kind of spray and pray and hope the next generation finds their way in the world. And so a lot of creatures are eating them and taking advantage of those. Oh, look at the geese. Look at the little yellow boofs. So Canada geese are herbivores. They eat all kinds of plant matter as well as seaweed. And they will supplement their diet with different crustaceans and things they find along the way. Oh my gosh, they're so cute.
I didn't know they'd say seaweed.
Geese are what are known as precocial animals, meaning that they are able to fend for themselves from the very first day that they are born. So they hatch and they can swim. They are able to function that way, and the parents don't feed them. So precocial animals are kind of born with, or I guess hatched with, what they need to survive. The parents do still care for them, but they're not like regurgitating for them the same way that like songbirds would be. The other type of bird is called altricial. And those are the ones that are hatched and they have very little down. They are essentially featherless. Their eyes are closed. And it's so cute. Can you guys hear them peeping? The little goslings go peep, peep, peep. They're so cute. One of my best pets I ever owned was a duck named Gooey. Get it? Gooey duck. I'm so funny. And we raised her from an egg. And so she was the first duck that hatched, and she never really saw any other ducks and didn't really know she was a duck. So she made a great pet. She followed us everywhere, hung out, came into the kitchen. Oh, this one little one. He just realized he was far away from all the rest and had to run over here. Catch up, little one. Don't get left behind. Just hanging out, these little creatures. Oh, sorry. I should not walk while I'm so zoomed in. Give everybody vertigo. Very Blair Witch-esque filming. Not that my cinematography is terrible, because I'm walking over this entire substrate here and having to make sure that I'm not squashing things like this little sea star that's hidden here, or small snails, or nudibranchs, or delicate animals. I'm being really, really slow and deliberate as I walk. I just can't get over these little geese. They're so cute. Maybe.
Oh, thick.
Yeah, I mean, thick enough not to go through my overflow is ideal.
Like an adult.
Like thumb size, yeah. I mean, adult is a pretty good size. But honestly, I don't need fish right now. So that's more like, ooh, if you come across the perfect one and we happen to be close by. Oh, here's some cool eggs. I'm not sure what laid these eggs. My guess is snail, because these are very similar to another animal I know that lays these little snail-like eggs. Yeah, so, all right, so now I can see the water moving this direction past here. Our tide has turned and it's gonna begin coming up. So I'm actually gonna go grab my bucket so I don't lose it. And just in case I find some more cool algae I need for my aquariums. I would collect some of this beautiful brown acid kelp, but it will kill all the rest of the things in my bucket. Ooh, here's a cool creature. I didn't even notice it. This is a Krangen shrimp, one that's got a parasite on it. So this bulge here on the left-hand side is a blood-sucking parasite. Don't want to ever interfere with that because it can damage the host and the parasite, and no good parasite kills their host. So they're in the business of keeping their host alive. So you don't really want to yank a parasite out and let that animal suffer. Connor, can you see the current change over there? Yeah. It's wild, huh? It's just starting. So now we have what we call the flood tide. So the tide has gone out, it's come back. Man, that's a cool looking rock. Are you a rock? Oh, you're not a rock, you're a nudibranch. I got a sea lemon. Thought it was a pretty rock, but no, a sea lemon. So this is a type of slug. I'm gonna scooch it into deeper water so that we can actually see it come out. I'll put it right back where it was. I don't like to move creatures from their habitats. But this is a sea lemon, a type of sea slug or a nudibranch. And this one is in the Dorid group, so it has the very characteristic butt plume, which is where they get their name of nudibranch, meaning naked gills. So on the back half, there's like a little cluster of branchial tissue. On the front, oh, just kidding, this is the back half. How can you tell? Well, experience, I guess. On the front, though, they do have some rhinopores, some sensory organs that'll come out if it feels comfortable. And then it has a sticky foot underneath. It's grabbing onto a lot of different algae and kind of muck from around here. I might be able to get it to come out on the shell here. Or it might just get blown around in the current. We will see. Yeah, there are a lot of very similar species between the Pacific Ocean and the Atlantic Ocean, but generally they're so separate from one another, they may not be related. So we have like moon snails here that are predatory snails. There are snails in the Atlantic called like shark eyes, which are really similar, but they're not necessarily like directly related. They don't share a super recent common ancestor.
Do you know those massive black ones? Those sea hares?
Oh yeah, sea hares. We don't have them here. We have a tiny sea hare relative, and it gets like 2 inches. It's called hedgepeth, which is just the great name. Hedgepeth. I get that name stuck in my head. There's sapsucker. Hedgepeth, sapsucker. Yeah, sacoglosson. Which is really kind of cool how they feed. So instead of having a radula that's like a chainsaw that scrapes, they have like a stylet, a really pokey one, and they swallow it at the end, and nobody quite knows like how they don't pierce themselves with it in their body. And like you can tell how old they are when you dissect them by how many of their stylets they have inside. Which they just stay because like they have to like seal them up, otherwise they would pierce themselves, and that would be terrible. So okay, the bronchial plume on the back half is beginning to come out. Oh, come on, focus. We're in really silty area, so I'm trying not to stand too close to it. So that's the gills. The nudie part of the nudibranch is the naked gills, unprotected gills, no operculum or a hard structure like a lot of animals have to protect their breathing apparatus. There's so much plankton in the water. It's crazy. Oh, look how fast the tide's coming in. I set that bucket on dry land, and now it's coming in. All right, well, friends, I think I'm going to wrap up this live stream, but I thank all of you for joining us. I will be out tomorrow, probably outside of cell phone range, so I don't know that I'll be able to do some live streaming then, but Monday and Tuesday I should be back. Hopefully the weather is just as beautiful as this, with just as productive of low tides and great visibility. So give us a like and a follow and play all those social media games. And I will do my best to get this uploaded to YouTube within the week. So you can watch the whole thing if you were only able to join us for a bit of it. Thank you to all of you who liked and shared and commented. I really do truly appreciate you. Thank you especially to those who donated to us through this live stream. We are a nonprofit group and we depend on grants and donations to keep our programs free and available for everybody. So here's me, the voice you've been listening to for like the past hour. Say goodbye to Auden and Connor. Whoop, whoop. And we'll catch you at another low tide sometime soon. Thanks, everybody.